not asking for a pin, but just said you don't have it, don't worry about it. Hey, Donald, can you hear me?
Okay, it is 13:35. I will call the meeting of the Pensacola Perdido Bays Estuary Board to order. Would like to welcome everyone to Santa Rosa County. It's good to have you all over here. Unfortunately, we don't have a quorum at the moment, but we're going to go through the agenda and all the presentations and everything, and I don't know that we'll have one, but we're still going to proceed through the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, Dan Dealey's on the phone.
Say that one more time, please.
I said Dan Dealey's on the phone.
Oh, okay. Hey, Dan. So we'll do a quick roll call, Donald?
Sure. Santa Rosa County Commissioner Dave Peach.
Here. Dan, can you mute yourself?
Sure, I just wanted to tell you I'm here, but I guess you know that.
Oh, is that Councilwoman Hill?
Then they can hear me. Check, check. Santa Rosa County Commissioner Dave Peach. Here. Escambia County Commissioner Robert Bender, we're expecting at 1:50. Santa Rosa County Commissioner Bob Cole. Commissioner Cole, are you on the line? No. Escambia County Commissioner Doug Underhill is not here. Dan Dealey on behalf of Baldwin County Commissioner Joe Davis.
I'm here.
Thank you, Dan. Mike Norberg on behalf of Okaloosa County.
Here.
Councilwoman Ann Hill on behalf of the City of Pensacola.
Here.
Councilman J.B. Schluter on behalf of the City of Gulf Breeze. Absent. Councilwoman Shannon Rice on behalf of the City of Milton. Woody Speed on behalf of the City of Orange Beach.
Present.
Mayor Ben Boutwell on behalf of the Town of Century. Present. Thank you very much.
Good deal. Thank you, Donald. Okay. Well, we can't approve the minutes either, right? We'll have to approve the minutes next meeting.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
No problem. I'm sure everybody's had a chance to read them. If not, we're going to give you a little more time to read them. Okay. We have a guest presentation today. Miss Mona Amadeo is here, and Chris Poore of the ID Group to give us an update on the PPBEP branding initiative. Yeah, you're good to go. So did you catch up with a catchy phrase for that acronym, maybe?
Are we good? Yep. Yeah, good. Well, first, thank you. We're very excited to be here today to share with you a journey we've been on and what we've learned and where we've ended up. We are ID Group. We are a brand transformation firm located in Pensacola, Florida, and work across the region. Our job is to help organizations shape their story, share their story, and live their story. So our job was to basically help this organization, the Pensacola and Perdido Bays Estuary Program, do that. So I'd like to introduce my colleague. This is Chris Poore. Chris is the Vice President of ID Group. I'm the founder of ID Group. So we've been around for about 30 years, so we've done a couple things around here. So today, like I said, I'd like to just share a little bit about our assignment, our process, and then I'm going to turn it over in a little bit of findings, and then I'll turn it over to Chris, who's going to share the visual identity work that we've done for the organization. So first of all, our purpose. What was our assignment? Our assignment was really first to engage a cross-section of people who are engaged in this organization, who care about this organization, and really who care about this purpose. And so we did that. We brought a group of people together. I think we had about 30 people that we brought together that represented various voices of the stakeholders of the organization. And the intention of that group was to help us shape the story, right? All organizations have a story to tell. And what we do is we work inside out, right? We listen, we analyze, and then we come up with what is called the identity narrative. The next thing that we were asked to do is translate that. So if the narrative is who are we, what do we do, and why should anybody care, we need to shape that in a way that we can share it with the marketplace. So that's our assignment. That's what we were asked to do. Don't let this scare you. I'm a former college professor, so I must have a model, right? I must have a model to deal with. So this is what we consider the brand ecosystem. And the ecosystem, as all of you know, is basically what must work together in an organization in order to create trust, relevance, and respect. In other words, what are the things in an organization have to come together to, yes, create a perception in the marketplace that is aligned with what the organization is all about, right? So if you look at the center of this, the vision, the identity, and the reputation, that is what we focused on for this. So when we talk about shaping a narrative, the narrative is that sense of who are we, where do we want to go, and how do we want to be perceived? And that's how we engage the organization in helping do that. So this is the model. Now, you'll notice there is a contextual environment, right? We have to look at economy, competition, and marketplace. When we start shaping messages, all of it has to be relative to who we're talking to. So while we did a lot of work around how the organization sees itself, we also looked at how are we going to, what's the market care about? What do the audiences care about? So our process is all about, again, shaping, sharing, and living, and creating a plan to do that. When you're able to align that experience and those expectations over time, right, you create trust. And that trust is is how you build reputation. So without getting too deeply, I could sit here for 2 hours and talk to you about that, and I know you'd really want to know. But this is just the model that we use as we do our work. So just a little bit of detail. So when we brought people together, we believe that we are the stories we tell, right? Whether you're individually or whether it is collectively or organization. So we got to have a story that we all agree on. Sometimes you bring people together and everybody has a different perspective about who we are. There's not as they say, everybody's not singing off of the same music. So our job is to get everybody around the sense of this narrative. The second thing that, as I said earlier, what our job and our work is to create messaging that's truthful, authentic, right? But we want to influence how people think about us. What we heard in the dialogue sessions is they're doing great work, right? But also scientists, right? And sometimes the translation of that is not something everybody can really understand. Like, what is it that you guys do? So part of that is how do we shape messagings that affect perception in a way that builds meaning and that people understand. And this is the second piece of it, is that is relevant. Why do I care? You know, what are you doing? Why do I care? So at the end of the day, when we are doing our work, we are tested by, are we saying something that is authentic? Can people trust it? Is it relevant? And so that's kind of the frame. And the way that we ensure that is we start inside the organization. We don't just go over here in the corner and start making up stuff. And the other thing, as I've already said, is we do believe the answers are in the room. So our job through this process was to bring people together to at least listen deeply, to analyze what we heard, to find the themes, and then turn those themes into the narrative. So we had a lot of fun with this as we kind of brought people together. I think we might have been the very first people in the new Pensacola at Bio-Tahar, the community center there. So this is the dialogue session that we did with everyone. And I think we had a lot of fun and got some very good information from the participants. So if you go back to that model, the question is, where does this organization see itself going? What is the vision of this organization? So I'm going to, if you'll forgive me, it's sort of hard to see up there. So let me just read this for you. The Pensacola Perdita Bay Estuary Program is a national leader. Now remember, vision is a stretch, right? It's built on facts, it's built on strengths, but it's where we're trying to get to. Okay, so the Pensacola Perdita Bay Estuary Program is a national leader and expert in estuarine, okay, say it for me, science and rehabilitation restoration. Estuarine, is that how you pronounce it? Estuarine. Estuarine. We have, I failed that test. We have significantly improved the environmental quality of our watersheds through proactive education, partnerships, and funding of impactful water recovery and shoreline resilience programs. As a result of our work, we have sustained measurable and impactful positive change for our environment and community that has led to a significant increase in the health, well-being, and vitality of our communities. And if you really look at that, those are all measurable things. You know, they're aspirational, but they're measurable. You can prove this. How do we know when we get there? When we look at these things and measure those things. So mission basically says, what are we going to do to get there? Now, this is a very succinct piece of the mission. There's a lot more to it, but I just wanted to take the high level: restore and protect the Pensacola and Perdido Bay watersheds through restoration, education, and unbiased monitoring of the health of our estuary. So that's what we do. We get up every day to do those kind of things for the purpose of getting to that vision. And the brand promise, basically, what are we promising to the audiences? Protecting what matters and a trusted source for protecting what matters. So that was kind of two things that came out of the work that we did. Positioning statement, basically, where do you fit in the minds of the marketplace? So Pensacola and Perdido Bay Estuary Program: educate, engage, and empower. Educate, engage, and empower. In service to the people and natural environment of the Pensacola and Perdido Bay communities, we serve at the intersection of information, education, and action needed to protect the estuaries that connect Pensacola and Perdido Bay estuary system. As a science-based, nonpartisan arbitrators and conveners, we advance fact-based decision-making based on deep understanding of human as a part of the web of life that sustains the health, beauty, and vitality of the estuaries for the enjoyment of all. So that's a mouthful, but that's what we use as we start to look at messaging strategies. This is stuff, again, that came out of that dialogue session that we learned, we extracted, and we said, okay, what do we need to say so that people understand? Now, we won't use these exact words. We'll translate it, but this is the intention of all the communications that we will do. So, as I said from the very beginning, every organization is a story. And so our work through all of what I just read with you, as well as other things, is to construct a narrative that defines both emotionally and functionally what this organization does. And again, this is used by our creative teams as they start to translate this to the marketplace. So I'm going to turn this over to Chris and let him share the narrative, and then he'll move from the narrative to the sizzle. I always say, I get this part. I say I get the substance. He gets the sizzle. So he'll get to show you the pretty stuff that I know is all you really care about. But I want you to feel very comfortable that what we are presenting is not sitting in a corner coming up with stuff, but rather our reflection of what we heard from the people who are this organization, still within the context of what we believe the audience is looking for. So we just wanted you to be comfortable. So thanks for listening to the substance. I'll let Chris deal with the sizzle. Thank you.
And sorry about that technical glitch we had earlier. Mona did not skip a beat, going right through it. So just so you know, there's a lot of information that came out of those dialogue sessions that we couldn't go over today with you all, but we have a report that you will get access to, so it has all of the information that came out of the actual sessions that Mona was mentioning before. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you what that narrative, what that identity narrative, what we uncovered from those sessions and from those conversations. So let me get my reading voice ready. No, I'm good, thank you. There once were men capable of inhabiting a river without disrupting the harmony of its life. And that's a quote by Aldo Leopold, 1940. So our connection to the water runs deep. It has served as a source of nurturing. Its bounty has fed and nourished all creatures, big and small, generation after generation. We are inextricably linked to water. And since the industrial age, we have been its greatest threat. Now, not only do our lives rely on it, but so too do our livelihoods and our quality of life. As a result of human intervention and explosive growth in business and industry, and the exponential increases in population, our waterways, once teeming with life, are being stressed by uncontrolled human development, runoff, and pollution. We believe it is our responsibility to preserve, protect, and help recover, renew, and reinvigorate the beauty and the bounty of our natural ecosystem, the Pensacola and Perdido Bay watersheds. This is not merely an environmental issue. It is an ecological and an economic issue that affects us all, from the wildlife to the fishermen, to the tourists, to the families that raise their children along the water. What is at stake is our health as a society. Our mental, psychological, and physical well-being is on the line. The beauty, scenery, and natural resources of our waterways are the reason we choose to move here, to travel here, do business here, and continue to live here. It is our responsibility and duty to ensure future generations can benefit from the natural assets we enjoy today. We put into practice a strong desire to create a sustainable, meaningful impact for all living creatures affected by the ecosystem, working to find the balance between environmental and societal needs. Guided by proven scientific methods, we employ the best practices in environmental and ecological science to guide decisions and policies that affect our region. We are Pensacola and Perdido Bay's Estuary Program, a nonpartisan group of active, engaged citizens who serve our communities through community outreach and partner network programs that engage government, businesses, and residents in responsible ecological stewardship. We work to provide a sense of safety, security, and solace for all stakeholders who call the Pensacola and Perdido Bay communities home and beyond, whether they're families, their businesses, or as a second home away from home. We believe that it is up to the people to protect the things they enjoy, the natural wonder, mystery, and renewing power of the water, the wildlife, and nature's beauty. Pensacola Bay Estuary Program, protecting what matters. So this is a translation, a very creative translation of the report. And what we do with this is we take that to our creative team to figure out how do we communicate this story. And we may not use all of those components word for word verbatim in our communications, but it should give you a sense of, this is what this is about. I feel really good about the direction of this. This is, it should feel very compelling. And so what we did from there is we took that information and we brought it to our creative team to figure out how do we create a visual brand for that story, for that narrative. So I'm going to share with you where we landed, which I know is what you're most excited about today. But before I do that, I have some slides as well. Sorry, guys. So when we create logos, just so you know, we're not trying to create something that just looks pretty. There is a metric, there is a measurement that we use within ID Group for what is an effective logo. And these are the criteria that we measure our development against. Now we try to hit all of them. Sometimes we don't hit all of them, but we try to hit as many as we can. So just very quickly, the first item is simple. Does it pass the KISS test? You guys are familiar with that. Is it memorable? Is it distinctive? Is it appropriate? So does it fit the audience as much as it does fit the organization? Is it authentic and true to the brand? So again, that core purpose and the mission of what we're trying to accomplish here, is it true to that? Timeless, will it last 10, 20, 50 years from now? Unique, does it avoid cliches and trends? Is it unexpected? Versatile, is it scalable? We want to look at how do we use this logo and these visual images on a t-shirt, as well as on a business card, as well as any kind of mailers or any kind of communications that we're going to put out there. And the last one, this is something that we've added through the years, is does it tell a meaningful story? This is, I think, really important too, because we want to make sure that people know that the logo is not the whole story, right? It's just one part of the story. So there's going to be a strategic communications plan that's going to be developed to help figure out how do we tell this story beyond just the logo. So these are the criteria that we measure against. And then these are some of the words that came out of, like I said, there's just so much that's in this report. How do you communicate all of it? So we pulled some keywords out of this report, people-centric, we heard that a lot. This is about not just the environment, it's about how do you find collaboration among the different people within our area to sustain and to reinvigorate the beauty of our area. Professional but not stuffy, caring, authority and expert, safe, secure, protecting, restoration, community. So again, these are just some of the keywords that came out of the discussions. And then this is where we landed in terms of the logo. So on the left, these are just concepts, think of this like an equation. On the left is brackish water. So obviously that represents the estuary. So it represents the estuary system where salt and fresh water converge. When you add that to the symbol of the pelican, wildlife resilience, to represent the delicate effect the water has on wildlife and ecosystem of our area. And then protection, there's a shield there, so to convey a commitment to protecting the estuary ecosystem. And in the far right is where we've kind of pieced all those different concepts, those visual concepts together into the symbol that here represents the Pensacola Perdido Bay's Estuary Program. So this is the complete logo, we call it a unit, a lockup in color. And then also some various colors, white against blues. We're trying to make sure that we stay in line with some of the existing color palettes that we have. We don't want to stretch the budget too far in doing any kind of new things, right? So we want to kind of utilize what we can that's already existing. So there's a color palette. It's difficult to see on this screen. We have built a brand standards guide that clearly articulates how do we use this logo, because we want to make sure that as we're putting this logo out into the community, we're doing it in a way that's very consistent, but also very cohesive. And these are some examples of concepts of the execution of that logo into, in the top right is like a presentation folder, samples of business cards and some letterheads there. And then that is the logo. That's the presentation. So there is still more work to be done on our end. We still are working with the team here to develop a communication strategy program or strategy document report that will provide them some recommendations on how we can launch this logo, how we can do some outreach, again, leveraging some of the communication topics from the report as well as from that narrative, that story that I shared with you, and how do we build this story out in the community. That's it. That's all I have.
Any questions for the team from the board? No? Well, how about Donald, any of the table? I mean, we're not a voting session. Any comments, questions? Since we got the team here from anyone?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
this is Commissioner Cole. How are you guys today?
Hey, how you doing, Commissioner Cole?
A few hours behind you, but I'm getting over the jet lag here, so.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
But I appreciated the getting in there. We still have a quorum, but as you said, Chairman, this is not a voting.
Yeah, we don't have a physical quorum right now, so we're going to go through all the info
Okay.
items. There was only 1 or 2 action items that we needed to cover. We'll just roll those to the next meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Just wanted to clarify something. Have we already contracted Idea Group, or is this a presentation to solicit us to put them to work?
Commissioner Cole, we already contracted them. The work is almost complete.
Okay, is this Donald?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, I'll get with you when I get back then. I like the presentation, but it sounded a little bit more, I think we need to put a little bit more feeling in it, I guess. It sounds like something that was just cut and paste and then, re-talked. I mean, I want to see some, we got a long way to go on this. I'm up here right now in the Puget Sound area where there's, of course, one of the 28th of the national estuaries that were developed, and we stand a good chance of, becoming possibly the next. And I like what I hear, but the presentation seemed to cover all the bases, but was almost, again, just like it was, cut and paste, not, no feeling in it to me. I mean, and I guess maybe this is something we use as a place card for us all to go by. But I talked to Holly Benson yesterday at length about, where my thoughts were as far as where we need to go and how we need to solicit some private interest in this. And that's kind of what I want to see is that this private interest gets stirred up about this, like the rest of us are. So that's my 2 cents worth. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Bob.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, is that Dan?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Unfortunately, my cell signal cut out and I missed the whole thing. So don't do it again, but will it be available, Donald, if I could come over and perhaps review some of the materials at some point in time?
Yeah, we can absolutely make that happen for you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else online who wants to?
Mr. Chairman, one other thing.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Donald, you got my email a few weeks ago about some add-on items I'd like to place on the next agenda. I just wanted to confirm you got that email. If not, I'll resend it.
Yeah, I actually was going to talk to you about that. You did mention the items, but I never received the list, so it would be wonderful if you could resend those.
Okay, I'll get that to you when I get back in town and get it to you. And I'll be in attendance of that meeting. So.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And
thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess the next steps in light of, with the branding.
Yeah, the next steps, we do have a few deliverables left in the contract. We're definitely in the home stretch, and I think that most of the heavy lifting is done, and we'll get basically guidelines about how we communicate visually and the types of language that we want to use, and then, it's up to us to execute that and make sure that we stick to the plan that's been made, and come back to it in a few years and make sure that it's working for us. The process was excellent, and they've been wonderful to work with, and I do hope that the work pays dividends. I think that it will. Certainly a huge step forward for us in terms of what we look like and how we sound.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work.
Hey, Donald?
The detail. Oh, go ahead. Is that Ann?
Yeah, sorry, this is Amy Newbold, EPA. I just, I was going to comment on the logo itself. This is the first time I've seen it. And, being somewhat familiar with the other 28 programs and how their logos look, I just want to commend the group. It looks very crisp and clean. I personally like the look, and I think they did a good job. So I just want to say, for what it's worth, this looks great, and I'm excited to see the guidance on how it's going to be used in all the different documents and publications. So good job, guys.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Commissioner Cole again, thank you.
Go ahead.
I would like for the group to hold off on anything we move forward on the branding until of course we have to have a quorum to do that, but one of the things I sent to Donald, I guess he didn't receive as a list, is the inclusion of Blackwater Bay in this title. And basically it adds one B to our acronym. I've been a proponent of that since day one, and I think if we're going to get buy-in from folks of Santa Rosa County, there's more of an understanding if Blackwater is named in there. That connects us to East Bay, that connects us to all our other tributaries. And even though Pensacola Bay is half of Santa Rosa County, the dividing line runs down through the middle, our citizens don't relate to Pensacola Bay. So I want to be a proponent for that. I mentioned that at NACO, have it on record at the NACO meeting. And quite frankly, if we go back through the records, I've been a proponent for that since the conception of this organization. And before we go forward with the branding, I'd like to bring that back to the board for further discussion. And that's my feelings on that at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Donald?
We'll make sure that's on the agenda for the second meeting in September, the regular meeting. So we'll have a meeting on September 1st for the community grant program, just for that program, and then we'll have a regular agenda later in September and make sure that Commissioner Cole's item is on the agenda.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bob. Okay, if there's no other discussion, move on to staff updates.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. So we've had a good couple of months. Really good couple of months, and a lot of really positive things have happened since our last meeting. Obviously, there's been a bill in the Senate, Florida senators, to make our estuaries, of national significance, which is a huge step for us. We've received, we finalized another state appropriation for $250,000, which is great. We've done some tremendous work on CCMP development, and I think have really shown the community that we're making really good progress. And so I think it's been a really solid couple of months since the last time we've all been together. Still working on office space. Commissioner Bender's been very helpful on that file. I appreciate that. And the county and our organization are working together, and I think that we're going to be able to get that done as well. You do have a financial update in front of you for the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year. We continue to run a surplus. You know, we're not in any kind of financial risk, with our current spending. We're going to talk more about finances later in the meeting when we discuss an update to the EPA grant budget, and we start to think about how to reallocate these surplus funds that we've brought in over the last 3 years, or that we've had left over the last 3 years. But again, this quarter, last quarter, we continue to run a surplus. Right now, it's about $50,000 a quarter, the last 2 quarters. So we do have some spending that's been, like, for instance, the contract that you were just briefed on, that money is not yet reflected in the numbers that you have in front of you. But so we have about $60,000 in spending that will be added here, that we've allocated to spending but isn't listed yet in the monies that have gone out the door. But that doesn't change, that's not a material risk, or it doesn't necessarily change our position in being we're still underspending quarter to quarter. So we'll come back to finances later as we discuss how to get back on top of and make sure that we get this money spent. But are there any questions about the financial update, basically quarter to quarter, what's going out the door?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Cole.
Thank you. Donald, how much was the contract for Idea Group?
It was approximately $40,000.
All right, and for how many months of work on that?
That work began in mid-December. We were that came out of procurement in, I believe, mid-December. And so they've been working with us now for about 6 months, a little over 6 months.
Okay, and is there an end on the contract? Is it only after we get our receivables, or
yeah,
what's the terms on it?
It was a contract for services with a list of deliverables, and so it wasn't necessarily based on a time rate, but they've certainly lived up to their end of the contract.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, if you would, let me know when would be a good time in the agenda. I apologize, I don't have it right here in front of me as far as the schedule of the agenda, but when we would possibly be talking about some, additional staff, mainly the assistant deputy or chief deputy for the program.
That'll be in 7C when we talk about how we want to update our budget and the changes we want to make to our staff. Will fall under 7C.
Okay. All right. I'll just follow along then. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll go through staff updates, Commissioner Cole, and then there'll be a few discussion items, and then it'll be a major portion of the action items when we get to those. So when you hear us talking about the bylaws, you'll know we're close.
We'll chime in, Bob.
Yeah, we're going to take action items?
No,
okay,
we're just going to discuss that one. Okay, on the human resources update?
Yeah, again, we've had good progress. Again, thanks largely to Commissioners Bender and Underhill in Escambia County. We did have the environmental science position close. We had 112 applicants, which is a big number. Been through them for minimum qualifications. About 60 or 70 sort of made through the initial, and Whitney and I will work to get that down to a manageable number and interview those candidates that we shortlist. And by the time the next meeting comes around, I hope that we'll have at least a date when that person will join the team. The community, the outreach assistant position opened on Friday. Because of the number of applicants for the environmental scientist position, Human Resources has asked us to initially open it for 14 days. and then see where we're at. And if we need an extension, they're willing to give us an extension. But both those positions are in really good shape, and expect to have them both filled, sooner rather than later now that the process has begun. So very happy with the turnout for the environmental scientist position. Definitely qualified candidates in there, and it'll just be about finding the right one. And expect nothing different with the community outreach assistant. Emerson Cheney, our volunteer coordinator, has been with us full-time through the summer, doing his work with volunteers, but also helping us with CCMP development and other things, and been very, very helpful. And otherwise, Whitney and Logan and I continue to work hard and do the best we can. So that's the HR update. Looking forward to building out the team over the next few months.
Sounds good. Any questions on human resources? Okay, on to the technical update now.
So Whitney and Logan will take care of technical and outreach, and I'm available for questions if necessary.
Okay, some visuals for you. Let's see. Awesome. If you guys can see that. Just an update on CCMP progress, like Donald had mentioned. We have a draft action plan that went out at the first week of July, and we had a survey out for feedback from our technical committee members. We've gotten a decent amount of feedback from that. Jessica's going to share more on details of that when we give the technical committee update. But I wanted to kind of take you through, how did we get here? I know that it's been a while since we've started this progress, and I put together this kind of workflow chart to kind of give you the major steps. It's important to kind of know where you came from and where we are now. So we started with our stressors and needs assessment workshops with both of our committees. Those consisted of a series of workshops, the first one being in November of last year. We were having breakout sessions with participants in various focus areas, including water quality, sediment, habitat, and fish and wildlife. And we ranked the data needs and actions by, or stressors by actions or urgency of stressors by the watersheds. And then we drafted a list of potential indicators that our participants wanted to see more information on for the workshop series, which was the next stage. And the Education and Outreach Committee also did a similar type workshop ranking the needs in our communities and deciding on various topic areas for that as well. And that kind of moved us into the next stage, putting this material to use in another series of workshops to dig into more details. So we selected indicators based on the stressors assessment workshop that I had mentioned previously, the Centers of Excellence, the FLARECEP group led by Matt Deitch and Jane Caffrey of UF and UWF, and of course Amanda, Haley, and Testify have been working closely with us to develop the materials for these workshops and really the entire process of synthesizing the information and drafting. So we provided backup data, synthesis, and summary maps at these workshops as backup material for participants and helping with brainstorming. And then we prioritized data needs, locations, and actions for these items for each of the focus areas. And then in the spring, the Education and Outreach Committee also had a workshop to identify current efforts that are ongoing in the watersheds and also potential niches of our program, what kind of things that we can spearhead in the future. And then our community values survey, we had over 700 responses across the watersheds. I know we've talked a little bit about that, but that's another piece of this puzzle. Collected input from various community members on what they value about our watershed, how and where they're using the resource, and the perceptions of the condition of our watersheds. We also got feedback on investments for healthy watersheds, improvements, and then funding sources as well, which all leads into the synthesis and drafting phase, which has been the last couple of months for us. So we've been sorting feedback into theme areas, combining similar concepts across the focus areas, so taking all those outputs and looking at them all in one space and deciding kind of how things are related to each other. And then we made a mural board, which is a virtual engagement tool, because we're all visual people, we put all of this on one big board, and we basically pulled things over and started, piecing things together to make what is now the action plan. And these were weighted based on, urgency, impact, feasibility, and resources. Again, this is from feedback that we've gotten from our stakeholders that are doing the work in the area, what is, the most critical things that we need to do now. And then the oyster plan, which is up on our website, the final oyster habitat and fisheries management plan that the Nature Conservancy led. Those priorities have already been built by stakeholders, so we are rolling those priorities into our CCMP, into one of our objectives. And then the review of the Education and Outreach Strategic Plan has also been ongoing, so we have been linking the main action plan with those actions developed through the Education and Outreach Committee. So it's all one piece. So I know that's a lot, but kind of going through the stages helps to kind of put it all into perspective. Exciting, the NCCA and NWCA work that we've been doing this summer, that have been planning for close to a year and a half for some of these, is completed. So both are now completed, and the data is being QA/QC'd at this point, and we will be putting together synthesizing the data as it comes in from our various contract labs. So these are just some pictures of the field work that occurred the beginning of June. And then, I know Barbara's here. She's been involved in the National Wetlands Condition Assessment that was led by Matt Deitch and a lot of grad students and undergrads and other folks that have helped us complete the National Wetlands Condition Assessment. Same sort of intensification that we did for NCCA. And so they were all over our watersheds in various types of wetlands. It was hard work, and we couldn't have done it without their help. So they just completed the last site in Perdido this past week. So we are excited to finally have that completed as well. And it's just been an incredible experience to see this stuff be completed. So more on that later. Actually, we have a cool, Daryl Boudreau from the Water Management District was out with his drone for the last day of sampling. And he was able to get a slow lapse photo of them setting up the transects in the marsh. And I thought this was just a really cool, also perfect, by the way. It's a perfect circle and perfect cross. I thought that was really cool. So that is an amazing effort. Something also that has been completed since our last meeting. This is the Santa Rosa oyster mapping that was led by the Nature Conservancy. Same to what we did in Escambia Bay with our state appropriation funds. So just wanted to give an update on these efforts. So the side scan sonar and the polling for bottom types, the oyster sampling, and the intertidal assessment has been completed. And really just the reporting and data synthesis is ongoing, and we expect to have these final reports in the next month or so. So the data that collected were both of these had similar data collected. We used the same contractor for this work. So bottom type and reef area, percent live versus dead oysters, oyster size and density was also collected, culture material present, and invertebrates present on these reefs as well. So we're going to have a lot of good data, and these this map on the right is the areas that were surveyed. These are some sample output maps. So as you can see, the different colors represent the different bottom types. So soft mud is that grayish brown color. I know it's different probably on your screen. Orange is buried shell. Pink is moderately firm substrate. Dark red is exposed oyster shell, and light red is reef. So we'll have a series of these types of maps for the oyster reefs, the remnant reefs. This was all based on old maps and oystermen identified reefs and NERDA reefs, and also previously identified and mapped from FWC as well. So this is going to be an awesome set of data from both sides of the Pensacola Bay system. So this is the same type of map on the left. This is where the surveys were completed in the red boxes. Same things, the sonar and the oyster condition assessment have been completed, and we're just in the data analysis and reporting phase. And same data has been collected for both of these contracts. So we are excited to see the final results of these as well. And these are some pictures. We actually got to go out in the field with Gabe and his crew. It was a very hot day, but a very beautiful one. So we got to actually see the outputs live as they were coming in as we were doing these transects. He has autopilot on his boat, so he basically sets the transects and it just does it by itself. It's crazy. It's a very well-oiled machine. You see the pole on the bottom right. They actually pull every so often to get a bottom type. So that's actually, they're feeling around and actually telling you what, and they're logging it as they go. So shell, reef, mud, etc. And they switch off, so they're not doing it constantly. They have two guys that go back and forth. So that's the update from me before we go into that. I don't know if anyone has questions for me.
Any questions for Whitney?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
thank you. Not a question, but just a comment. Sure, we all possibly seen the email earlier today from Annie Birch that they actually got some rocks in the water, I guess, at this point. So that's coming along great. Appreciate the report. Thank you.
No problem, Bob, but I had a chance to share with you, but I'm actually going out on a tour that August 10th, I believe it is. So get out on the boat and see that reef. If you get time, I'd suggest you work with Ann to get on it because I'm pretty excited about getting out there.
Thanks, Bob. I'm also going to cover more once we do the oyster subcommittee update as well. But I forgot to share that, so thanks for adding that note.
All right.
Hey, and Mr. Chairman, too, I want to thank Daryl for doing that drone video, too. I haven't seen it yet, but knowing Daryl, it's going to be top notch. So thanks, Daryl. Appreciate it.
Exactly. All right, we're going over to Logan.
Yes, Daryl's our go-to drone pilot. We're always happy to take advantage of his great skills. So we're going to first touch on our last cycle of our community grant program. So those wrapped up in June. June 1st was the last day of those. So just some highlights here. We had hands-on education to approximately 880 students. We had a 2-day training on living shorelines for marine contractors. We had research studies on waterfowl, microplastics, and fish communities on oyster reefs. And then we also had produced a documentary about the Escambia River and a video series about the social and economic impacts of our waterways. And then we also, lastly, had the configuration and demo of a proof of concept citizen science-based augmentation reality app for Bayou Tahar. That was a little bit of a mouthful. So we're really excited to see all of these grants come to life, and we'll be sharing the product of those in the future at a grant symposium, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, so we'll have an opportunity to hear about them in more detail. We have also launched our next grant cycle for 2021 to 2022, so that request for proposals has been out, and we have $250,000 from our state appropriations this year that's allocated towards this effort. Applications are due August 3rd, so if you know folks, if they haven't seen it already, please remind them that that application is just around the corner. And eligible entities include 501c3s, educational institutions, and local governments. Projects are eligible if they are in the Pensacola or Perdido Bay watersheds. They do have to primarily take place in Escambia, Santa Rosa, or Okaloosa County, and that's based on the funding source. That doesn't mean there can't be some tie-in to a project with other portions of Perdido, but the majority of it for the grant does have to happen in the Florida portion. So some important dates for this funding cycle. September 1st, you should have received an invite from me, a calendar invite, for an additional policy board meeting. Like last year, we will be reviewing the recommendations from the selection committee about the grant proposals that have been reviewed, and they'll put forth a suggestion, and the board here will have the ultimate decision of which projects to fund. And on September 23rd, we'd like to invite you to a community grant symposium. That's going to be at the Bayview Center in Pensacola, and it's going to be from 5:30 to 8 p.m. in the evening. It will be open to the public, And we'll be highlighting all the projects from our last funding cycle, as well as announcing our new recipients for this upcoming funding cycle. So we're really excited about that opportunity. And the request for proposals for this next cycle, their projects can take place between October 1st and May 31st of next year. So we have increased the time that they have to actually execute these projects compared to last year. And then for some events and involvement, since the last time we've seen you, we were excited to participate in the Sea Turtle Baby Shower at Pensacola Beach, as well as Perdido Key World Oceans Day. Luckily, they had us under the pavilion there on World Oceans Day, so we did have quite a storm come through, but we were able to stay dry under there, and we had some great outreach despite the weather. For both of these, actually, it rained at. But it did not stop the crowd, so we were excited to see people out and have a chance to really engage with them one-on-one. And then I just want to highlight quickly before we touch on another item, National Estuaries Week. So National Estuaries Week is a celebration of our estuaries nationwide, and that occurs in September. And along with that effort, we're looking to put together a week-long, robust calendar of events, of programs and activities that are completed by program staff as well as partners across the watershed. So what you can see here is starting Saturday the 18th, which is International Coastal Cleanup Day, all the way to the 26th, which is going to wrap up with the Pensacola Seafood Festival. We have some great events scheduled, kayaking trips, seining. We are having our community grant symposium during that time period. I have a meeting later today with Beardless Brewhouse to see about releasing our Escambia River documentary in the evening, and that was one of our community grant funded projects with Blackwater Soil and Water Conservation District. So we're really excited about that opportunity. And then we'll be tabling at the Seafood Festival as well, and we are looking to create a oyster natural history bay cruise as well. So we're currently looking for funding for that opportunity, some sponsorships, and that will involve renting out the Bay Ferry to take a cruise, a sunset cruise across the bay, where the public will be invited to attend and learn about the history of oysters in our area, their current status, restoration efforts, as well as aquaculture in the area. Some upcoming
Mr.
events.
Chairman?
Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to catch her before we got off the National Estuary Recognition Month. If she was finished and moving on to the next subject, I didn't mean to interrupt her, but if you could just give me a placeholder before we leave that topic.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I think right now is good because she's moving to the next topic.
Okay, great. What I was going to say, it's odd. God has worked in mysterious ways. Here I am completely on the opposite end and the opposite corner of our country, where we have, three large estuaries. We got, the Tillamook Estuary Partnership, the Lower Columbia Estuary Partnership, and of course a large one, which is the Puget Sound Partnership. And it's just my hopes that we can continue this education to one day that our estuary will become a national program, and one day we'll tie with Mobile Bay and very possibly with the Terrebonne National Estuary Program in Louisiana. And, one day look at these maps and see that the entire Gulf of Mexico is a national estuary program involvement in each community. We see that up the East Coast quite a bit, where majority of the northwestern or northeastern corner of our coast up there is estuary council after estuary council. So it's my hopes that we work hard and see this evolve, and I'm glad we're having this recognition this month. Glad we'll have a presence out in the community, and just good luck with it. I intend to visit some of these areas up here while I'm here, and possibly get in touch with some of the council members or get some brochures from them. You never know what you may bring home that, help us not have to recreate the wheel. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Exactly. It's a research trip, Bob.
Can the county pay for it?
No.
No, we won't go there.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Logan.
So, sorry,
Mr. Bennett.
I think these are all great outreach initiatives, and I guess sorry, can you put the map back up, the schedule? I guess there is a cleanup there, but I just thought, there'd be more ways to get involved. Just my personal opinion and focus on, I know we're trying to do a lot of outreach, not saying that, but, it seems like that might be a way to really pull in some volunteers. And also I wanted to ask about the volunteer form. Have we gotten that straightened out? Okay, so a volunteer no longer needs to be notarized. Okay, well, good. But yeah, so that way we can, it's more easily for free people to get on board and doing it. But, and I understand that we've, we've got the documentary and everything like that, but I just, I think maybe part of the other outreach could be highlighting some of the needs in our area, so people understand the efforts that we're going towards, and really highlight our mission of what we're trying to improve. If not available for this year, hopefully for next year we can really highlight those and give people an opportunity to come out and learn more. The Oyster Sunset Cruise is probably good, but we have a lot of other things that we can showcase, and just my opinion. I don't know if anybody else shares that, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman, is the guy still there, or I lost you?
Yeah, Don, you're gonna have to go to the mic. Okay. Yeah, we were just discussing, Bob, different ways to keep increasing the outreach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Logan?
Thank you. I would note the Scambia River documentary will focus on issues from our area and how Blackwater has been working to address that. So I think that will cover part of that. And certainly there's a long list of issues we can certainly touch on, and we will, when we engage with folks at the Seafood Festival and these other events, be talking about our mission and opportunities for them to get involved and the work and progress we need to make still.
And I did make it to the turtle baby shower, so it was good to see them out there, and I think it was well attended. Of course, that's part of the events that we need to help share our mission and just awareness. So it was good to see you guys out there. Thank you.
All right, in some upcoming events, the team will be at the Alabama Water Resources Conference. That's going to be in Orange Beach, September 8th through 10th, and I'll be giving a presentation on building a cross-state estuary program during a pandemic. And if there's no questions on that, I will hand it off to Emerson to talk about our upcoming kickoff for Trash Free Waters.
All right, hi folks, good afternoon. We're very excited to announce that our very first cleanup for the Trash Free Waters project is going to be taking place this Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon at Lexington Terrace Park over in Warrington. Just to give a little bit of background, I know we've touched on it at a couple of meetings, and then of course our initially scheduled cleanup was thwarted by a tropical storm. But the Trash Free Waters project is this cleanup is part of a larger effort that aims to engage volunteers and community members and students to reduce the impact of waterborne trash in 3 of our local creeks. So those are Jones, Carpenter, and Pond over here in Santa Rosa County. For this first event, we have over 40 participants registered. We're also partnering with Keep Pensacola Beautiful, Ocean Hour, Warrington Revitalization Committee, and Visit Pensacola. And the Escambia County Sheriff's Office will also be hosting their back-to-school community outreach event at the same time. So we're looking forward to a good turnout and talking with a lot of different people throughout the community. So I'm really excited for it. And if you're available, I would encourage you to come out and see us. It'll be a great time.
Did Commissioner Bender get his application notarized?
No, I'll notarize that at the event, actually. I have my stamp. I actually carry it around with me now, so. And so, like I said before, the project targets those 3 creeks, Jones, Carpenter, and Pond. We're already thinking about Pond Creek, that initial cleanup taking place in October. And of course, once the initial cleanup takes place at all 3 of these creeks, that begins a continuous monitoring program for upwards of 6 months. So once we actually clean it up completely, we'll be installing a boom system, which will basically be an accumulation site for floating trash. And we'll have volunteers work with me and some other folks to go in and monitor what types of trash is collecting at those sites. And that'll inform a more targeted business partnership aspect of the project where, if we see certain types of bottles or whatever collecting at a particular creek, then we know who to talk to about identifying solutions to reduce their impact. So we're really exciting that all of this is kind of coming to fruition, at the same time. So if there's any questions about anything, feel free to shoot, but that's the update on that.
Yeah, Emerson, we had chatted a while ago, Pond Creek especially, reach out to me and Commissioner Cole. I mean, we've got a great relationship with the school board, so, we really want to help you push that Pond Creek event because that's an important one in this area, and we really want to highlight this program, but also, the efforts going on and getting those volunteers. So don't be bashful in asking for help to push and get you more volunteers.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good media around some media, around the initial cleanup this weekend, so that's good. Like to see that, and Logan's doing a good job managing that, so happy to see it, and definitely happy to have that project rolling. Okay. Like to move to the discussion items? There are 2. The first is an overlap in area of interest between our estuary program and the Mobile Bay Estuary Program. We were aware of the overlap, but ultimately it was the Mobile Bay Estuary Program through their director, Roberta Swan, that contacted us via the Association of National Estuary Programs, which is a federal group that all the 28 groups belong to, and that does a lot of good work on their behalf in Washington. And so their director, Rich Innes, and Roberta and myself and Matt Posner had a phone call, a very constructive phone call about this area of overlap, which is highlighted in a map in your packet. It is basically the Alabama portion of the Perdido watershed, the Perdido Bay watersheds, so including Orange Beach, Foley, and it was that's an area that Mobile Bay added in 2006 to their area of interest, I believe to facilitate their engagement with Baldwin County. It made their engagement with Baldwin County more straightforward, I believe. Today, there's a tremendous amount of funding flowing into the Perdido watershed, and so there is a few considerations, Alabama state funds for the Perdido, county funds, for the Perdido. Definitely our National Estuary Program designation has to be considered, and that overlap in the area of interest and how we deal with all that. So we did have a meeting with decision makers from both organizations. Mr. Speed was there, Mr. Dealey was there, Commissioner Davis was there from Mobile Bay Estuary Program. The Alabama Commissioner of Conservation, Chris Blankenship, was there, who also happens to be the co-chair of the Mobile Bay NEP. That was last Monday. We again had a very constructive dialogue. I believe it's in the interest and the wish of Baldwin County that they support both organizations. And the next steps are that our organization will draft an MOU, a first draft of a memorandum of understanding between the two organizations. And if we can come to an agreement on language, that'll be brought to the board, our board, and their board for approval. And we hope that successfully developing an MOU will ensure that we don't encounter any unnecessary hurdles as we try and move through the National Estuary Program designation process. My goals, obviously, are to ensure that Baldwin County and Orange Beach continue to be participants, signing participants in the estuary program. And so, you know, that's absolutely critical, and I made that clear to the group. And so that's where we're at with that. I'm pleased that it's being addressed, and I do hope it's addressed constructively. And so we'll take it from there, and nothing will be approved, you know, without review by the policy board when that language comes available. So I'm happy to take questions. Would love any conversation that the group has on this. And if there's any questions, we do have Mr. Speed and Mr. Dealey available, who were in the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Woody, do you have anything to add or I mean, it's, you know, I understand that, I can understand where the Mobile Estuary Program's coming from, but.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good meeting. There were some concerns brought up. You know, we had begun and kind of moved forward with the understanding that they were aware, we were aware, and everybody was just going to get along and play nice. And generally the meeting went well. I think the consensus was that we did not want to do anything that would jeopardize the possibility of the national designation for our program. And so that's where the MOU came in. I would like to note that Matt Posner volunteered to take the first draft of the MOU. And so I think that hopefully will, you know, allow us to have some input initially and make sure that all our concerns on both sides are going to be addressed. And of course Dan was present as well, and he can add to it, but we absolutely want the support of both programs. You know, being that Orange Beach is basically on the line. I mean, we fall in both jurisdictions, I guess, and so yeah, I think the MOU is important, but I think first and foremost is national designation for the program.
So what are we trying to accomplish, or what's the MOU going to, I mean, what are we thinking of it containing? Is it the roles and responsibilities of each organization and their duties over this area, or you know, just right? Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, is it you know, would we be working towards joint? I guess I'm just curious as to what would be contained in the MOU. What's our first stab look like?
Well, I think the bones of it are the area, you know, the area under consideration, the types of work that both organizations intend to do in the area, and the methods, and perhaps quite specific methods in how the groups will communicate with one another as we work, you know, as we both work in the watershed. And you know, it was proposed that it was proposed by the Mobile Bay NEP that we would give up any interest in that side of the Perdido watershed. But that's, again, I'm not interested in losing Baldwin County and Orange Beach. You know, I manage estuarine health through, you know, comprehensive watershed management. So I don't think that that's necessarily realistic. So those are the types of things that will be laid out in the MOU is, that Baldwin County and Orange Beach have asked us to come in and work with them in our effort to improve the health of Perdido Bay. Mobile Bay is actively pursuing, has funding, watershed management plans in that area, likely has further interest with some other restore funded work in the Perdido watersheds. And so detailing that and sort of figuring out what the next 24 to 36 months look like for the two organizations, that's my goal for the MOU. And committing both organizations to regular communication is particularly important. I don't think ad hoc communication is going to do the trick. I think that Roberta and I need to know this is when we're meeting, and if we need to have people along with us to have discussions about certain things, then it's up to each of us to make sure those people are there. But yeah, there can't be, we don't want any more surprises. So those are the basics. I'm not sure how much deeper than that it'll go. And there's a world in which we're collaborating on projects. That's the ideal outcome, and there's no reason to think that can't be possible. We're certainly the only one of the two who's concerned with the health of Perdido Bay, and from there, our interest in those watersheds becomes natural. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. The National Estuary Program, the ones that were designated, basically from number 1 all the way through number 12, were all interlocking with each other. So I'm sure there's language that they've developed over the years and working collectively because as Donald said, the main goal is the quality of the water and putting our estuaries back in place. And as I said earlier, I hope to one day see us all join together from Galveston, Texas, all the way to the tip of Florida, the whole Gulf Coast, in program after program to do this. So, and I think one thing I did hear Donald say, and I may have misunderstood, said that out of the two, that we're probably more interested in the quality of Perdido Bay, and I tend to disagree with that. I think the Mobile Estuary Council would probably, have an equal interest in that. We had meetings with them, had them come do a presentation way back when we were still Bay Area Resource Council, and they had Perdido Bay on their radar way back then. So that's just my comments on that. I think we really need to research MOUs or any kind of technical agreements that these past councils have already developed and work from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Cole. Commissioner Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I just wanted to thank you guys for working with this. Of course, we don't want to do anything that would jeopardize our potential designation, and look forward to working with them moving forward. But it does sound like that was a great suggestion by Commissioner Cole to see what other MOUs were out there between maybe some of these first estuary programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing I haven't heard, make sure it's on record that I was successful in lobbying NACO in keeping that resolution for our designation alive at NACO. I believe this last time that it passed should make it NACO policy. Now it has to go through resolution stage, I think 3 or 4 times, and I think I've finally got that passed to where I'll have to check with NACO, or Don will check with Adam at NACO, but I believe at this point it should have became policy after the last legislative session. So, thank you.
And Commissioner Cole, I apologize, I didn't see you up there. We had the Blue Angel event on Friday, so I didn't make it up until Saturday morning, but we are still working towards the Gulf States Caucus with renewed interest from some of our partner states. And so we hope to develop that committee as well. So, thank you.
Anything else on that item? If it demands it, we'll make sure that we'll bring anything necessary at the September 1st meeting, but barring that, we'll have an update at the regular meeting later in September.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, the next item I added, I don't expect this to be a long discussion, but because I was doing a bylaw update that dealt with subcommittees, I wanted to be sure that everybody was comfortable with the structure of their committees, and it was a little bit, it was just by coincidence that I did have, we had a very constructive conversation with the chairs of both our Education and Outreach Committee and our Business Partnership Committee, and meanwhile, I was updating the bylaws to allow for our Finance Subcommittee. Both those chairs were interested in what types of structure they could add to their committee without making any major changes. So I wanted to be sure that they had an opportunity to be heard, that we didn't go ahead with a bylaw update, and then have to turn around and do it again to make sure that all of our committees could function the way that they want. So we've had good conversations with both Education and Outreach, and also we raised it at Technical Committee, although there wasn't an appetite for change there. But Education and Outreach is interested in creating some specific roles within the committee structure, and the Business Partnership Committee chair has discussed ways to ensure the necessary engagement from what are going to be very busy people. But I do believe after, and we have two of them in the room, and I hope Jessica's on the line, but I think that we're good here. I'm happy to have a conversation about committee structure with the board if there's any concerns, and I definitely invite our committee chairs to chime in, and if there's any questions for the committee chairs. In our conversations, everyone was very committed to keeping these committees as fact-finding. That never really entered into the conversation. Everyone's very comfortable with that. And I think that we can allow our committees to vote on topics, internally. I think we can allow them to identify roles and responsibilities beyond just chair and vice chair without having to make any major changes to our bylaws. So that's where we're at with committee structure. I think it's good to check in on it before we're not going to proceed with the bylaw update today, but that was the purpose of this discussion item. So is there anything that the board hears there that maybe causes pause? I think that we have to keep thinking about these committees, keep making sure that they're designed properly to maximize engagement, and so that's what this item was about. Nothing major.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Commissioner Kroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this update, and and I'm not sure if it fits in here or not, but I want to go ahead and get it on record that I believe that, perhaps in our September meeting, we need to talk about, this organization as far as the structure of it from Donald down. Donald's doing a great job, but he needs those people in place underneath him. But take it a step further, I think the organization has grown to a point where we need to pretty much thank Escambia County for what they did in the past as far as housing and personnel assistance and everything else. But I think it's time that we kind of step away, let this group make their own decisions, especially when it comes to hiring some more staff, upper level staff people. I don't see where there's any further need in involving Escambia County's HR department in any of these future decisions. And I'd like for that to be on the agenda next month also.
Yeah, I had similar discussions with Donald, so can we?
Well, and the EPA update that we're about to jump into in the Finance Subcommittee, that's taken up most of my time, but I do have a note for the September meeting that we can talk about our future and start to think about what we want to do. We did have a brief discussion about it 2 meetings ago and came away with that sort of with the end of the EPA grant is a good time, but we can certainly begin. I will come to that September meeting with a draft proposal for what needs to be done to take us independent, if that's what the board decides, and we can start to have that conversation. So I think it's a good time, gives us a nice big runway. So I'm happy to do that.
Commissioner Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There would be no pushback from us, speaking for myself, but I think I'd also speak for Commissioner Underhill. That, of course, we understood the need to be involved then, but it's much bigger than Escambia County, and And I think I've tried to make those statements before that. So I appreciate the board's support in allowing us to help out, but this is much bigger than us, and so we would, at least I would support that, so.
Thank you. It's been working with Escambia County has been wonderful. It's not perfect, but tough to run an organization of 1,500 people and, everything be perfect. But, Chips Kirschenfeld and everyone in Natural Resources Management, where we do our work, we had birthday cake before we came today. So we work in a really nice place, and I'm grateful for it. You didn't get the invite for the birthday cake, no. It was an inter-office memo. In any case, committee structure is pretty straightforward. I do think we have what we need in this bylaw update. We can't adopt it today. It's a very, very simple update that allows the policy board, in our committee bylaws under section 5, our committee bylaw creates open membership for all committees. That wasn't what the board requested for the finance subcommittee, so I simply added a little bit of language that allows the policy board, when appropriate, to close the membership of one of your committees, and that's as simple as I feel like I could make it. So that would allow you to create a committee that isn't open to any interested stakeholders, which is currently the situation. And we will return to that, I suppose, at the next meeting. If there's any comments on it, or we certainly, if there's anyone in attendance or on the line with the policy board that is uncomfortable with that or uncertain with what I did, we certainly want to make sure this passes the next time it comes before you. So, okay. Without adopting that, we can't necessarily appoint the subcommittee, but I'd like to at least have the conversation. I've done my best to beat the bushes on this, and I'd love to come away if it is something that the board wants to see happen, especially if there's going to be a role for the subcommittee in the EPA update. It'd be nice to have a conversation today and see where we're at with it. We could probably go ahead and get it set up, but I don't know if, Dan, are you still on the line?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so.
I'm still here.
Thank you, Dan. So I've spoken with, Commissioner Bender. I've spoken with, actually spoke with Councilwoman Rice, who came out of the last meeting quite interested in it. Unfortunately, she's not here today. Spoken with Dan about it, and Dan originally proposed it. I do think the committee's a good idea. I would like to see, at least 3 policy board members on it, with perhaps 2 folks invited, including an EPA representative. And with that said, I don't have a slate of candidates ready to go for you today, unfortunately, and folks who I thought might be on it aren't with us, but I'd like to see if there's any appetite for the finance subcommittee, either with members who are present or folks on the phone. We need a chair, and we need a few other members if this committee is going to get off the ground and play a role in this update.
Donald, as I told you, whatever you need, just let me know.
Thank you.
And we had similar discussion in my office, so yeah, we need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that would be great to have representation from both counties, for sure. And so it'd be nice to have somebody from the Alabama side of the line.
Absolutely, I agree, and I'll actually get with Dan, and we'll decide which of the 2 of us that'll be.
Okay, so we'll count on at least one of you.
I think Dan and I can agree on that, yep.
Good.
Commissioner Cole and I'll have arm wrestling competition over.
Well, and I'd like to, maybe we could think about live streaming that. We could do a good bit of outreach. That's a wonderful start. Any other interest on the line? Okay, well, why don't we, Amy, are you still on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
If the committee chooses, are you eligible to join?
I would be happy to participate. If it's some sort of voting thing, I would abstain from a vote, but I'd be happy to participate.
So you're not able to participate?
Say that, Donald?
Yeah, she wouldn't be able to vote, she said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Donald, Dan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I would think that Amy would need to participate only in an advisory role, observation advisory role, as it is a subcommittee of the policy board.
Thanks, Dan. Good point.
Yeah, okay. We did talk about being able to invite outside members if necessary, but, okay, I won't press my luck here. Why don't we take 3 members and see if we can get a meeting put together and go from there? It will be in the sunshine, but I'll follow up with everyone and we'll get that done and take it from there. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to our next piece, which is a big piece of work. We've been working with Amy on this now for a few months, trying to get it over the finish line. It is a major amendment to our $2 million EPA grant. And I've provided you with a few documents in an effort to make it as easy to understand as possible, but I'm happy to answer any questions. So the major pieces that I'm asking for your consideration is the request for extension that will take the grant from the end of July 2022 until the end of December 2022. We have an updated budget which takes surplus funds and reinvests them in items sort of throughout the budget, although the central pieces are some human resources and then a significant investment in third-party contracting, which will allow us to do multiple things simultaneously and get our money spent in a way that's constructive and allows us to do, well, a number of different things, and we can discuss that specifically if there's interest in that. But and then the third piece is basically the the entire narrative of the grant is being updated with the Gantt chart timeline that goes over sort of where we're at and where we're going over the remainder of the grant. We've got some updates to our outputs that talks about some of the delays, how they were caused, and the update to those timelines. We're not proposing any reduction in work or any sort of or deliverables. We're still talking about getting all the work done, but and then there's a detailed budget narrative that supports the changes that are being proposed to the budget, and so those are the major pieces that make up this update. I do believe that it will allow us to effectively invest the funding that's been secured. There's by the time we tally up this year, there'll probably be more than $600,000 that needs to be reallocated over the next few years. So that's what we've got. That's the work that's been put into this so far. For the next steps, I'm basically looking for feedback from the policy board. Amy, of course, is on the line. She's interested in hearing that the policy board is pleased with the direction, and then it will go into the hands of the EPA, and they will decide whether they're satisfied with it, and then ultimately it will come back to our policy board as an amendment that needs to be approved. And ultimately, it's a Escambia County Board of County Commissioners, and so that's its final step, since they're technically the recipients of the grant. But once our policy board is fine with it, I'm sure that we won't have any issues there. So that's what we've got. I'm not sure how we want to tackle this. I'm happy to go through the budget, talk about some of the contracts. Some of the causes for delays are pretty straightforward. We've had some hiccups in hiring. We did have a hurricane and also a global pandemic. So we're only asking for a 5-month extension. I think between those 3 events, we'll probably make a pretty good case for it. And then the budget becomes a little bit more of a back and forth to ensure that the funder is satisfied that the money's being spent to achieve the original scope of the proposal. So if you want to take a look at the budget, I did try to this larger document, I did try to put the new additions in bold for you and italicize them. I'm interested in adding an administrative assistant late in the grant. If we do prepare to go independent, I'd like to have somebody beginning to work on our books and our paperwork and making sure that we're getting them up to speed with whichever type of governance we select, make sure that person is being brought up to speed on how to do that and manage that for us. There is a deputy director position there. And that, Commissioner Cole did mention that earlier in the meeting. I'm not sure, can you hear me, Commissioner Cole? Okay, I don't hear him on the line currently. I have boosted up some advertising and marketing materials, printing materials. I did also, those are so that we can do outreach and engagement. I did boost up website design and hosting to ensure that we can have the function on our website that we promised in the grant. And then we do have, a few $100,000 in contracts. We are looking to do a very credible seagrass survey, both on site and using aerial imagery. That's with FWC, Dauphin Island Sea Lab. We're looking to produce a 22-minute documentary on the oyster fishery through the Mississippi State Television Center. Florida State researcher has proposed an economic impact and valuation of both our estuaries and the program itself. We've got money in there for a estuarine bays, bayous, and sounds is what it's called. That would be in partnership with Escambia County. And finally, the University of West Florida and the Brim Fishermen Association would help us fill gaps in our freshwater quality data. So all projects that have been kind of orbiting the program and, nothing that we really, nothing that, they were all, it wasn't hard to find them, I guess I'll put it that way. And then finally, I added a year's worth of insurance costs to the final year so that when this grant finishes up, that we've got the coverage that we're going to need to make sure that the program is protected. And so that's how we get back to $2 million. If the policy board is pleased with it, then we'll take it to finance subcommittee and make sure they're happy with it, and we can perhaps get down into the weeds with them if that pleases if that's happy with the board's happy with that.
Commissioner Bennett.
Thank you. Don, I just want to say I was happy to see the additional under contractual to see the seagrass survey, oyster documentary, economic impact and evaluation of the program, bays, bayous, sounds assessment, and the freshwater quality assessment. I think that's the work that we need to be doing. So glad to see that a lot of a majority of this money's being, or not majority, but a good portion of it's being put back into that.
Absolutely. I would say it's a strong majority. Definitely, that's definitely allows us again to do multiple different things with multiple really high value partners, touches on different parts of the program, important parts of the program, different types of ecosystems, different types of work, and allows us to, as staff, to continue working on the CCMP, which has been the strategy. So it's been great. It's been very collaborative as well internally to come up with this list. So we feel good about it and doing our best to ensure that the EPA is comfortable with the list as well.
Yeah, is there any further discussion? I think you got board direction, Donald.
Great. Appreciate that. I'll keep you up to date on that as well. Very important piece of work for sure. Okay. The only other piece of business wasn't major, but the policy board approved a process last year that for the community grant selection, and basically was looking for a motion and approval today to use that process again. We have launched the program, so it is a little bit cart before the horse, but a big piece of feedback we got from year one was that applicants wanted more time. We really felt time was very valuable, and we felt like the policy board was very comfortable with the process. We also knew internally that the policy board has final say on the projects. So I was looking for a motion here just to bless the process again, but I don't think it's necessary, and that's all this item was about. And again, we'll have a special meeting on September 1st. We've got a selection committee. So that's all that was. And that takes us through our action items, or what were our proposed action items.
Great. Any discussion before we go to committee updates? Okay. Is our technical committee on?
Jessica, you on the line?
I am, hold on, I'm trying to.
Oh, wonderful.
Get unmuted, there you go, okay, cool, thanks. Oh gosh, and now you're putting me on the screen, okay. Then I'll have to move things around. Sorry, I've got things on different monitors. Hi, yeah, we had a technical committee earlier this week on Tuesday, and we spent a lot of the time really getting a little deeper into the weeds with that CCMP action plan that Whitney touched upon briefly earlier. As she mentioned, the draft of the CCMP action plan was shared with the technical committee members, and then there was a survey to collect input on that. We had 15 folks respond to the survey, and a couple of other technical committee members submitted additional comments not through the survey. In general, so just to give you a high level, this action plan covered 6 major goals, which align very well with those focus areas that were covered in the workshops earlier in this year. And then under each of the goals, there were objectives and actions. And then for each of those, there's implementation strategies, timeframes, partners, funding sources. And so the metrics, how we're going to assess how well we're doing accomplishing those actions. So the survey allowed the technical committee members to provide input on all of those elements. So it is a lot. I think all told, there might be, Whitney can tell you the exact number, but I'm guessing there's about 60 or so actions across the 6 goals. It is a lot of work. Some of it is for the staff, some of it is for partners, some of it can be contracted out, some of it will hopefully fall to the local governments to implement. Because of the work for the staff, one of the recommendations that came out of the technical committee was to prioritize these actions somewhat. Like I said, there is a fair bit of work for a number of the different partners. So in addition to those responses to the survey, there was also a lot of discussion and input provided directly at the meeting. So I think it was a really valuable meeting for advancing the CCMP action plan. Again, this is kind of the heart of what is going to be in the CCMP. So I think it was a really productive meeting. Obviously, after the technical committee has provided all of our input, the staff is going to be incorporating that, and I apologize, I don't recall the timeline now for when that will be presented to you all, but it was definitely a productive meeting. That was the big thing I wanted to share. I think most of the other items have been brought up in the meeting thus far. Whitney, did I forget anything?
You're good.
You're getting head nods here, Jessica, thanks.
Okay, and I did want to just mention, I will mention quickly, as Donald updated you on, we did talk about whether or not we wanted to have some additional roles or change the committee structure. And I think we said right now we just really want to focus on the CCMP action plan And then maybe in the future, if there's a need, but right now we didn't see a need for identifying additional goals.
Okay, I think you got a question from Commissioner Bender.
Yeah, I probably would have taken it later on, but I don't want you to get off. But I'm just curious. I'm actually getting. I'll be down in Tampa later this week. Do we have an update on what's going on? I mean, with their fish kill, and I mean, I know in maybe 3 years ago, we saw where the red tide and everything, the green blue algae was really making its way up this way. So I didn't know if we had any updates on that we could be provided. Then Jessica, I thought, you being down that way, you might have a little bit more knowledge or up to date on it. But I would, I think it's important that we monitor what's going on down there as it eventually could come up and impact us. So I don't know if anybody has an update on that.
That's a great point. I will say some of the objectives and actions in the action plan up there is becoming a central repository for watershed information, becoming a trusted and reliable source of pertinent watershed-related environmental issues. And I think that's such an important role for you all to play, because that's exactly the role that the estuary programs down here are playing. Both the Tampa Bay Estuary Program and the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program, I think that they held a joint press event. I'm not sure exactly what the nature of the event was, but they both came out and identified the Piney Point phosphate discharge, spill that occurred earlier this spring as being very closely tied with the red tide event. I mean, yes, the red tide currently, it did start further southwest, where it typically does in the Lee County, Fort Myers area, but it's completely unprecedented for it to come into the bay the way it did and cause those massive fish kills. I think, oh golly, I did know that the tons of marine life that were impacted, and now manatees are starting. I think 30 manatees have been linked to the red tide. So the FWC continues to monitor red tide across the state, and those data are available. I can look them up now and put a little note in the chat. I'm not aware that it has been detected up there. Again, the red tide, it's naturally occurring. However, nutrients that come from human sources exacerbate it and extend it and amplify it. So again, it just underscores the importance and need for this estuary program and for the community to work together to reduce the amount of nutrients that are entering the bays.
Perfect, and that actually reminded me of another article I read where they just said that the flesh-eating bacteria is along the Gulf. Right? I mean, yeah. Which is something that we've mentioned, and then I think that this program needs to do is as things come out, they can maybe clarify or speak to a blanket statement like that. Of course, Escambia County used some funds to do some monitoring levels and try to get a baseline and working with University of West Florida so that we could speak to that should there be an increase or case or something like that. So I think I read the article or saw the story, and it never really clarified where along the Gulf that they were seeing this, other than
Panama City Beach, I think.
Okay, other than it was naturally occurring. And
it was in an insect,
wasn't it? I see Barbara waving her hand.
Was it an insect bite?
Okay.
It was, the Escambia County study was Vibrio, but the recent article, I think, was an insect bite, that it's migrating north.
It's just that it could go through an insect bite, and so I think if there is something, I mean, I wasn't contacted by any local media or anything like that, but of course, it could be put out there, and I think we need to make sure that we're proactive in responding to things like that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you, Jessica, for the other update.
Thanks, Jessica. And Oyster Subcommittee?
So we, of course, provided background material on the overview of what the Oyster Subcommittee structure would look like at our last meeting, and we actually had our first meeting at the end of June with good attendance from what was the majority of the stakeholder working group that the Nature Conservancy and their facilitators put together for the Oyster Plan, and of course Mike served on that committee when he said FWC. And we hoped to, of course, have other interested parties as well. So this is aquaculture folks, state and federal agencies, nonprofits, et cetera, community science groups. And so it was a good first meeting, getting everybody back together, rallying the troops. Of course, Anne talked about the new project that they have going on, Rocks in the Water, of course, which is great. I know that has been delaying start, so I'm glad to see that on the ground. We'll be on the boat trip on the 10th as well, so we're excited. And so we just discussed a lot of different things, a lot of good discussion, really just highlighting oyster-related efforts in the systems, kind of getting everybody back up to speed on things that we're thinking about doing for Estuaries Week and just general education and outreach and research-related efforts. I gave an oyster mapping update, which I gave earlier. And then we had a structure discussion as well. So they, of course, want to stay as fact-finding, and we are hoping to have the next meeting in person so we can have more of those folks that can't always come during the day. We're going to have an evening meeting similar to the workshops that they used to have with the oystermen, and they're really looking forward to seeing us in person. So they have contacted me, and everyone's really excited to be involved in this effort and to keep things going. Of course, the main function of this committee will be talking about strategies and projects and how to implement the oyster plan, so it doesn't just sit on a shelf. We're gonna be doing active things related to oysters, so we're excited about that. Of course, general discussion, talking about potential presentations we could have from other partners, and talking just general intent of the committee, and we all agreed to focus on, prioritization and future goals of future meetings. So the next meeting will be August 24th in the evening from 5:30 to 6:45. We'll send, of course, that information out via our newsletter, and that will be in Santa Rosa County. Chris Verlinde usually is the host for the Oystermen, so it just made sense to have it at the same location. So we are looking forward to the next one.
Any questions for Whit?
Yep.
No questions, but I apologize for missing that first meeting.
Hello. Much like the technical committee, the education committee and outreach committee is very much focused on helping with the CCMP development. But first I want to let you know that staff is doing an amazing job culminating a lot of data and information, survey and strategic planning. It must feel a lot like herding cats at times, but they're doing an amazing job pulling all this information together and synthesizing it into a good form, and I feel like we're really in a good place with the CCMP, and I feel confident that deadlines will be met. So I wanted to say kudos to you guys for that. Just like with technical committee, we're focused on goals and objectives and actions and audiences, much like, I don't need to repeat all that, like was mentioned earlier. We're also, along with that, the committee has been focused on helping with the Estuary Week, National Estuaries Week celebration. National Estuaries Week is something that's been ongoing, but this is a new thing for our community, and so the estuary program is really developing a new week-long celebration. Our committee is focused on helping, get this inaugural week celebration off the ground. So a lot of our efforts were focused on that. And the last thing I wanted to mention, which may address Commissioner Bender, some of your comments earlier about engagement and volunteer need. Once we, as an organization, we've really been in a building phase, right? We've been in strategic planning and, sticky notes all over the wall, right? And we're now kind of to that point where we're pulling that all together. We're getting close to having that CCMP, and we're about to be in this transition phase of moving into implementation. Right, and so my vision for the Education and Outreach Committee, and one of the reasons why I asked to be able to talk about the structure, was to be able to do more than just providing input and information to help develop that CMP. Since the majority of that work is done, and it's really mainly in staff's hands now to synthesize that and get that into words, I'm starting to think about how committees can continue to be beneficial to the estuary program and what needs to be done so that we can continue to provide input. And so my thought is, looking at all the different areas of education and outreach and having specific roles and people to fulfill those roles so that we can have, take-home tasks for members and continue to contribute. So I do believe that the structure of the committees being outside of the sunshine and is very important. The environmental field in our area is very small, and we all work together outside of the estuary program, and it would severely limit the amount of participation that the committees could have, if we changed that structure. But being able to have some flexibility within that to loosely just, put roles without actually changing the structure could really help the committee to be a little bit more effective, I think, in the future. So thinking to the future, one of the things I would like to see our committee start to think about in future meetings is developing like an ambassador training and volunteer training program, which the estuary program can use to engage citizens across the watershed. And I think our committee is well placed to be able to help develop the bones of that. And then that can be used, once we start implementing other programs like citizen science programs and getting more people engaged in the watershed, then it could serve as a model for some of those trainings. So that's what I'd like to see our committee do in the future, along with, of course, continuing to help staff with CCMP. Thanks.
Any questions?
No, just, if I may, just thank you for all the work you guys do.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And a newcomer, the committee of one so far.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. It is so nice to see you. My name is Holly Benson. I know some of you, I don't know all of you on the phone, but I look forward to meeting you and working with you on this very important project. So I grew up here in Pensacola, and I got lured away, and they sent me to Tallahassee, and I kept thinking, I gotta get back. And then somehow I wound up in St. Louis. My boss told me that the Mississippi River was just like my Gulf of Mexico, and it was a big fat lie. Well, look, he was pretty charming. And I had a good time in St. Louis, but you know what they don't have? They don't have our bays, they don't have our rivers, they don't have our Gulf of Mexico. And when I came home last fall, I'm sort of fake retired, although I'm leading the Business Partnership Committee. Don't worry, I still am employed, I guess. Anyway, I felt like I needed to do something to make a difference, right? Like all of us who live here, we believe that this is the most wonderful place on earth, and we have an obligation to give something back. And because I know that it is our waterways that make us particularly unique in this world, then I felt like I needed to do something for an environmental cause. So I started asking around with friends who had been involved in environmental causes for a number of years, and I said, where's the best place to make a difference? And they said, look, it's the Pensacola and Perdido Bays Estuary Program. You need to go get involved in that. So I went and I met with Commissioner Bender, and somehow I got volunteered to be head of the Business Partnership Committee. Currently, I'm a Business Partnership Committee of one. So As we embark on the efforts of this Business Partnership Committee, I thought I should make sure that I came to see you all and got input into what your vision was when you set up the Business Partnership Committee. Donald and I have been reaching out to other estuary programs, and the Business Partnership Committee is unique among estuary programs. So we have a special opportunity to craft this in a way that can make a difference for our communities. Look, we all have a role to play in keeping our estuaries clean and improving the quality of them because we want our kids to come home and live here. So mostly I wanted to give you some brief thoughts, get your input, and also as we work to expand the committee beyond a committee of one, I need your help on identifying folks who are really passionate about this or have influence or can make a contribution in some way. So when I think about the work of this committee, I think there are a couple of ways that we can add value, both to you all as the policy board and to the staff of the estuary program. There are some things I think we should do. We should offer input on the strategic plan and budget. We should educate businesses and individuals about the economic value of and best practices for preserving and protecting our estuaries. We should support initiatives at all levels of government that benefit our estuaries, right? Like it's not just your duty to go to Tallahassee and ask for money. It's not just your duty to go to Washington, but we ought to be part of that message because the people that we hope to get involved in this are also involved in politics and are contributors to these various causes. So we ought to be partners to you in that. But one of the things that I think is also important in the work of all of these folks, I even have musical soundtrack. How do you like? You think that's pretty good? Anyway, one of the things I also think is important is to demonstrate that we've had an impact. So I think we're going to look at things like helping with the oyster reefs, helping with septic to sewer, helping with things like stormwater runoff, because we will include business leaders who can have an impact on those sorts of things. And if we're investing the time and energy, then we ought to be able to say, hey, we made a difference. And with those kinds of numbers, it's easy to say that we did have a difference. Look, so we are working to gather a pretty diverse array of folks. It's easy to hit up the big businesses who are having the clear impact on our estuaries and who have the financial resources to bring to bear. I've been gone for a little while, so I don't know all the people who care about this really important cause or who have time to dedicate to this. And my confession is I don't know enough people in Baldwin County, so I hope you'll help me out. Commissioner Cole, so Commissioner Peach, I have not met you yet. Commissioner Cole is already rattling off a few folks for me, but let me know. Anyway, mostly I just wanted to come say hello, tell you that we have been meeting a lot with ourselves, coming up with agendas. It's been very highly productive, but I was ready for your input so that we could make this committee have a difference for you all. So with that, I'll conclude. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for helping us make this successful, and we look forward to making you successful in return. Okay, so with that, what questions do you have for me?
Commissioner Bennett.
I was going to say, meeting with yourself, though, you don't have to worry about sunshine.
There you go.
But Holly, thank you so much. I'm glad we were finally able to catch up again, and thank you for that. So yeah, I know she made the plea to Woody and Dan. Hopefully we can get them, get Holly in front of your elected board to where they can help lean on the local business leaders and get her introduced. And get jump started to that. So I know some of us have filled out the forms for Donald, but it's going to take continued effort. And I said for me, I thought this was something where we have our technical experts and our education committee and things like that, but really getting the business community involved is just as important so that we can continue to do the work that needs to be done with their support. So.
Yep, I agree with all that. First of all, thanks for being here. This is great, and I think it's a good kickoff to the committee. I absolutely will get you connected over there.
Okay, great.
And I passed some names on to Donald, so he has some info.
Yep.
I don't know what info is, but
Info.
but happy to have you aboard.
Okay.
Excited to see you here.
Good, thanks.
Thanks. Good pick, Robert. Look forward to working with you, Holly.
Okay, thank you all very much. Thanks for your great important work.
Okay. Any updates from policy board members that they want to share? Donald, anything for you to share additional?
I guess before before we move into public comment, I did just want to mention something that I've discussed with the committees. These estuary programs, what we're striving towards, a big part of them, and it's articulated well in all of our foundational documents, but I don't hear a lot of talk about it, is the management conference. And of course, everybody here is part of the management conference. And I think it's important that we have a meeting of them and call it a meeting of the management conference. And so I am aiming for sort of a late January, mid to late January meeting, what we'll call a meeting of the management conference. I hope will become an annual event. It'll be an opportunity for us to celebrate, also to share our work. This year particularly it'll be CCMP intensive, and also talk about what we want to accomplish in the coming year. Make sure that there's a little bit more cross-pollination between the policy board and the folks that are attending our committee meetings, and basically what I would consider sort of an annual general meeting of the organization. And also if there's any questions about whether we are doing what we said we'd do in terms of establishing our management conference, it'll be clear that we've done so. So that's the only thing. We talk more about that perhaps in September, but I just wanted to put that on your radar, that I have been speaking with committees and have been volunteering the policy board to participate in what we're calling our first meeting of the management conference.
Sounds good. Robert?
So I guess sometimes we put on when the next meeting is. So I know we have 2 meetings in September.
Yes.
I would hope that, and again, I apologize for being late. My Captain Tim Kinsella received the National Leadership Award from the Navy Foundation, and he had just taken the stage when it was time to leave. So, but I hope that we can get better attendance.
Yes.
And if I'd be willing to reach out to some people within the board to encourage them to try to come, because we have not had this issue before that I'm aware of. I know it's maybe been close once or twice, but to make sure that everything can move forward, we do need to make sure that we get quorum. So
absolutely, it's critical. And I do apologize again. I did wake up with quorum today.
No, I mean it's.
But anyway, absolutely, it's critical that we have quorum.
Right.
Absolutely, and I apologize. Even up till 1:30, I wasn't sure if Commissioner Underhill would make it, and so I let you drive here. I apologize.
No, that's I wanted to be here, so, but I mean, I know that the city of Pensacola has a special meeting tonight, so I don't know if that's what kept Ann and.
It was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah.
Okay.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, we'll carpool next time, Ann.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Thank you.
sorry. Okay, we'll make sure we have quorum next time. So yes, September 1st, and then the last Wednesday in September, it's our schedule for coming up, and then we'll look for a meeting, that management conference meeting in January. That was all I had, and so I believe you're at public.
Any last updates from anyone on the phone? If not, do we have anyone from the public that wants to address? How you doing, Barbara?
Okay, so good to see everybody. I have all kinds of little comments, so I'm just hoping I can get them all in the right order. First of all, thank you, staff, for doing a really good job. You've been busy, and I'd like to say we've been busy helping to get everything together. Is that me? I think that the elected officials who serve on the policy board and the elected officials who are interested and oversee the watersheds that we are discussing may need to be on the same page as the CCMP. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. We've had lots of meetings about problems, so. Okay, there, sorry, thank you. Sedimentation, big problem. Clear cutting, big problem. Wetland buffers, big problem. Climate change, lots of rain, big problem. So far, we've had 50 inches of rain in our area. We have unbridled development going on. We have a land development code in this county that is relying on stormwater data and flood maps from the 60s. It's 2021. We just landed on Mars. We gave our rover a drone. Boudreaux would be so proud. We can fix this. We need political will to help. All the money in the world will not fix this if we are not aligned. I'm just saying, we can do better. Climate change is real. We have fires out west, we have flooding in Europe. With the amount of water that we're seeing in our area and the heat index, which just walk out in the parking lot, Africa hot, we're going to start seeing more problems with diseases. Those diseases, many of which are anthropogenic, are going to cause a problem in our coastal areas. Our coastal areas happen to be the resource, which is the golden egg, if you will, and we're killing the goose that is laying this golden egg by ignoring this. Last year, for the mini grants, the University of West Florida put in some funding for Vibrio, and that was cut short because of COVID. This year, we're going to put in some more funding for this because we are very interested in knowing what's happening during on months and off months of the tourism industry. I'm saying that because I'm looking at some of the people who were making decisions about our area and what should be funded. Perdido River, that's interesting. We have interstate watersheds and it's a boundary. Well, in Florida, it's an outstanding Florida water. In Florida, when we do restoration, because we can't conserve what we have, we talk about including habitat, woody material. Well, last week we saw barges carrying deadhead logs down the river. Hello, could we get in sync? The right hand, the left hand need to be on the same page. I know this program wants so bad to be a national estuary program. And with it comes lots of bells and whistles and esteem and brouhaha and we're the best, and that's all great. But we've been around for a long, long time and we've been doing a lot of the work. And I have to say that we are not yet there. We are not yet producing our own information and data. And I know for a fact that last year when we put in a grant for the National Estuaries Program, we had to align ourselves with only established ones. And yet all of a sudden our little wannabe was like, oh, well, we'll take over. No, we're not there yet. Don't put the cart in front of the horse. We'll get there. I will help you. But I will also point out that it has been a long road. So CCMP goals need to align with elected officials. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. You and Commissioner Cole have the ability to raise the bar. I have said this over and over again. You barely allowed a 25-foot border from a wetland upland. I'm saying double it. Let's see. How important is this estuary program to you? Put your money where your mouth is. Right. I think I'm done. I'm tired. You know, BFA's been around for 50 years. We celebrated our golden anniversary last year. And it's really hard to watch the ribbon along the coast get all the restore money and not much going on inland. In Escambia County, we have 65,000 people who don't know where their next meal is coming from. We have real issues with enterococcus entering our waterways and trying to figure out who should post the signs to let people know it's not safe to swim there. At the same time, the city of Pensacola is trying to decide how to spend $3.2 million to make a big fancy park. Quit hardening these systems. Let's address stormwater. Let's update our maps. Let's do some basin studies. And let's build a foundation that we can build off of instead of, no offense, and I like Mona very much, worrying about logos. Good Lord, if anybody needs a new logo, it's the Brim Fishermen Association, but that's fluff. That's fluff. I mean, I know you have to sell it to the public, but come on, we can do better. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Is there anyone else from the public? If not, it is 3:45. We will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.